second,
You're
Greg.
making the point rather than saying that we are not getting more moral.
Greg,
I'm saying we are.
all I'm saying to you is this.
No, you mentioned the thing about the wars in Europe.
All I'm saying to you is this, Greg. Dick Cheney was asked on the London Tonight programme by Trevor McDonald as to the war in Iraq. Now, that's from the horse's mouth now, right? This is what Dick Cheney said. It is irrelevant as to why we attacked Iraq and went to war with Iraq. What is relevant is that it was in the American interests. We could not, hold on a second, let me finish his quote, and I quote, he said, we could not have a tyrant like Saddam Hussein controlling the largest untapped oil reserve in the world and hold America to ransom.
That's an immoral statement.
Now, by your testimony, that shouldn't be happening now.
I agree. That's an immoral statement.
But that's my point, Greg. My point isn't that everything we've done previously was more immoral and today everything is more moral, or vice versa. That's not the point that I'm making, and that's not the point that Hamza's making. What Hamza's making the point is this, that when you rely solely upon social consensus, then if your God happens to be strategic power, world domination, resources that are running out, water, oil, etc., then you're quite capable of doing whatever you have to do to protect your national interests. So, for example, in England, our biggest export industry is arms. And do we sell arms only to those people who wish to defend their lives against tyranny? No! We sell our arms to those who commit the tyranny, commit the mass murder. Is that a more moral way of living? Saudi Arabia. Selling them Yemen. They're in Yemen. They're bombing the crap out of Yemen. Our company supplied them with instruments of torture, knowing that they torture their own people. So what I'm trying to, Greg, my argument is this.
I'm not saying we always get it right, but I'm saying
Greg,
It's getting more moral.
Yes, over time.
The thing he's saying.
No. I admitted that. Look, you're still waving your eyes in a superior fashion. I'm saying that. Yes, you are.
I didn't wave my eyes in a superior.
Yes, you are. You're rolling your eyes.
You wind him up. There's been past videos.
My point was this. My point was that over time. I will leave the discussion if you want.
No, don't, Greg. Look, let's have a friendly discussion. Let's have a friendly discussion. Let's not get upset.
Over time, we improve, not monotonically in the mathematical sense.
Right.
We do fall back occasionally.
Right.
But as a general consensus, over 2 or 3 years, we improve. And we've even improved in the last 60 years. And there have been no wars fought between Western European powers since 1945.
Not even a lifetime. Well, Russia's ready to have a go. Anyway, the point here is this: your moral compass or your moral anchor changes with the tide. Yeah?
Yes.
Ours doesn't. Ours is stand for.
So for example, Islamically, I would not be able to sell you arms knowing that they're not for self-defense. If I knew Islamically that this government is an oppressor, it would be Islamically forbidden for me to sell you those arms.
What part of Islam forbids you to do that? Does the Quran mention this or the Hadith mention this?
Because the example of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is that any oppression, any oppressor, if you can stop it with your hands, you stop it. If you cannot stop it with your hands, then stop it with your tongue. Speak out against it. And if you can't do that, then at least think of it as evil in your heart, and that is the lowest form of belief. So as a Muslim, if I see that you are being unjust and I have the capacity to stop you physically by not selling you the arms in the first place, then it becomes incumbent upon me not to do that.
Not to do what? Not to
sell you those arms. So my point is, and Hamza's point is, that for us, now I'm not saying and I'm not arguing that all Muslims are moral.
No.
All Muslims preach morality. Clearly there are some very bad examples today that we see. But we're not talking about, we shouldn't be talking about what some Muslims do.
Yes.
What we should be talking about is, what does Islam truly teach you, and how does that change you? And the Prophet of Allah said, all this ISIS talk and all this hatred for the West and killing people and doing all this, what did the Prophet, peace upon him, say? If your religion does not soften your heart for humanity, does not make you a better person, does not make you a more, a more compassionate, caring person, then you haven't understood this religion. How much that we see, how much do we see today that actually contradicts that statement of the Prophet, peace be upon him? So when an ISIS guy says to me, all infidels should be slaughtered, all non-Muslims should be slaughtered, I remember that hadith, that saying of the Prophet, and now I know you can't be right, you are wrong. Because the Prophet said, unless you are compassionate, unless you are caring, unless you do.
Look, that was a very good speech, but you're summing up exactly the dichotomy I'm trying to make. You're saying that you're saying when the ISIS man says kill the infidels,
yes,
I think back to a hadith,
yes,
what Muhammad said, and
yes,
that's how I formulate my opinion,
yes,
about the morality of his statements. I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying I would judge that statement solely based upon my personal morality by consensus. I think that what ISIS does is wrong because by killing anybody, killing any innocent,
yes,
killing anybody just because of their religion is totally wrong.
What if tomorrow the consensus became that it was actually...
It will not become.
No. We're dealing in hypotheticals, I know. But I'm saying if tomorrow the consensus was that actually, you know what, people with ginger hair should all be wiped off. No, I'm saying that, right? And that was the consensus.
I agree. That's a morally very difficult question.
Right, so that's my
I'm
point.
not saying democracy always gets it right. And that's a very good point. You're saying, what if for some obscure reason a law is passed which violates common sense?
Interning Muslims, for example, very likely.
Interning
Muslims?
Interning Muslims.
Interning them.
Yeah,
Yes.
like they do with the
Thinking there could be a threat.
Well, but they haven't done that in the last 50 years. I know that was wrong. I agree. Interning the Japanese is wrong. But we don't intern
situations in
Muslims.
society can arise where the majority of the people could agree that there is some threat.
History is replete with examples of morality which
This is why you need
badly
to
enforced.
transcend.
This is the point. You see, man can't be trusted to set the standard because he keeps getting it wrong. I don't know how many times you said they got it wrong.
If you believe as I do that there is no God, if you believe as I do that man has created all the laws, even the Ten Commandments or the rules that Muhammad came up that allegedly come from the Creator, they're, in my opinion, all man-made. They're all made by man because they're all relayed by man. I don't believe in the Creator because I don't see evidence for the Creator.
Okay.
But my point that I was trying to make
Why do you believe
I
that?
don't believe
Why do you believe
that
that?
I'm less moral because I don't believe
But Greg, why do you believe that they are man-made?
because I don't believe in God.
Okay, but that's
everything here is man-made.
but that's a logical fallacy.
you could be wrong.
Why is it a fallacy?
I'll tell you why. Because what you're saying is, because I don't believe in God, then this text that you have here, the Quran, cannot be true. And
I simply said it is made by man.
Now the reason why that's a fallacy is this: because just because you can't see something doesn't mean, number one, that with a surety that it doesn't exist. That's the first point. The second point is that if the claim is made that this is from the Creator, then and that's something that's tangible that now you can test, then I suggest that you should test it.
How do you test the fact that the Quran came
Right,
from God?
that's a very good question. Now, by looking at the Quran, if the
Go back to the circles and then
if you, by looking at the Quran, by studying it, and I mean studying, not looking at one verse and taking it out of context and then reading on a website what it means, and I mean studying it, right? If you come to the conclusion that the way that this book presents itself is impossible to have been constructed by any human comprehension or understanding.
There's no way
Hold on a second. No. But I'm making an analogy or an investigation or a result of an investigation, a hypothetical situation for you. Right, now listen.
I've read other people
Hold on a second.
read the Quran.
No, but hold on a second. Greg. Hold on. But that's not evidence, is it?
No, it's as much evidence as you're saying.
No.
I'm now Muslim because I look at the
one is completely
Quran.
subjective. One is completely subjective.
They're all subjective.
No, hold on a second. One is completely
There's no scientific proof
You
that
can't
the Quran
test.
can't be man-made.
You can't test for. I don't find this book very interesting. There's no test for that because what you might find interesting or what I might find exactly.
But there's no test that suggests the Quran must be made up from God. because
Now
there's
you
no
make a claim. Now you make a claim, right? Now listen. The issue here is that and that's the if upon your investigation it turns out that these facets of evidence that the Muslims are claiming could not have arisen through any naturalistic explanation. No, hold on.
You can drive a horse and cart.
Let me just finish my. No, let me just finish my point. Then I would suggest.
That's him rolling his eyes.
I agree.
No.
I agree.
Okay.
I can see that.
But you know what, Greg?
I can see that.
But you know what, Greg? I'm not going to get annoyed with you. I don't mind.
No.
You get very upset. I don't get upset about rolling eyes.
remember why you rolled
it doesn't.
your eyes,
It doesn't
yeah?
bother me.
When you see me doing the same, you know why.
You can.
I know, okay.
You
I
can-
agree. Okay.
You can roll whatever you want with me. I don't care.
Don't let me do
right?
that again, because I do that too. I
Okay.
know that.
Okay. But so if you can apply that, and I emphasize the point, if you can apply that test, and it becomes more objective as a consequence, then
There is no test that I would concede. I think it's all objective.
Okay.
It's all subjective.
Okay. You say subjective, right? I would disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. And I told you about the Professor Raymond Farin and his investigation on the. Hold on a second.
Scientific.
Okay, but you see, look, you're arguing things now. You're arguing things now about you have no knowledge.
Exactly. Science can't
That's
prove
unfair.
God doesn't exist.
That's unfair.
What am I arguing?
You're denying that his analysis was non-scientific.
Yes, because I say logically it's impossible to believe that.
Okay,
Because you're saying he can somehow conclude logically
Yes.
that this particular text
Could not have come from a human.
Have come from a human.
That's right.
And I say I don't believe logically
Yes.
that there is such a test.
Okay.
That such a test is possible.
You know what you've just done there? You know what you've just done there, Greg? You have exactly. You've got a predisposition that this cannot be true.
Yeah, I'm saying that logically. it's
Okay.
possible.
No, but it's not logic. It's a predisposition that you've arrived at.
No, because
you can't say
science.
No.
Science doesn't rely upon. I cannot conceive that there even could possibly exist a test that is so-called
That's why
scientific.
science can't be used as a tool to determine truth.
No, I
right
can
to the
see that.
beginning.
All current scientific theories
concedes that.
might be slightly incorrect. That's true.
Greg.
Newton was overturned by Einstein.
They're just beliefs. They're just beliefs.
You said
They're not just beliefs. They've got more validity than that.
They may well have through observation and experimentation, etc., etc.
Based upon the truth,
do you think-
the so-called truth of this
But before we go down
You're a man
there,
of science, you know this
no,
is
but
true.
before we go there, Hamza.
You're a doctor. You heal people through science.
Let me,
No, you're missing the point. We're talking about
the presumption that you're making.
things
is
we
a
don't know.
fundamental-
Let Imran finish.
The presumption that you're making is a fundamental basis of science, that there are no non-naturalistic explanations. That's the
Yes.
fundamental assumption and presumption.
That's
within
my
science.
assumption.
Absolutely.
Now-
So therefore, you cannot make a conclusion using science of something beyond nature. So it's not the tool to use to discover if there's an
So what tool do I use in the absence of that?
excellent question. Excellent question. And we can go into that very.
But then the revelation is not is an unreliable.
No, but Greg.
I think the scientific method is much more reliable than
just showed you why you
revelation
can't
as a
use
guide
it.
to truth.
Absolutely, I understand. You're absolutely right. It will tell you the howness of the universe. How is this working? How is that working? But there are other questions which are beyond howness, and science is not equipped to answer those
I
questions.
agree. There are areas that science doesn't profess to understand and can't address.
So it's exactly what you
I
said.
can't-
So you can't use science to refute something that's not natural.
But also,
No,
Greg.
but that's my very point. I was saying that there are areas that science cannot investigate, and including the so-called whether the
Okay.
Quran was
But
written
you see,
by a
look, Greg-
deity or written by a man.
But-
Your point was that somehow that your Oxford professor could somehow say, I can prove through some sort of scientific method that cannot have been written by
you
man.
seen that?
And that
Greg,
cannot
Greg,
be
Greg,
addressed.
what he said.
Greg, all I'm saying to you is this, Greg. Look, we deal in decision making, or in accepting or denying something, usually on the basis on the standard of balance of probability.
Yes.
Right. We're never 100% sure what a strawberry tastes like, because what it tastes like to you and what it tastes like to me could be different.
I agree.
Right. Okay. So it's on balance of probability that a good strawberry is probably sweet, right? Because he's tasted it.
know that.
You understand my point? Okay. So when it comes,
My point was that science is more reliable than revelation in this particular regard.
science is more reliable at answering, like Imran said, how things are working, etc., right? Of course, but I'm not denying that. You see, you're making a straw man argument there. What I'm saying to you is this: that you've made an assumption that it is illogical to be able to prove through objective evidence or truths that this could not have been the work of any human being.
I studied mathematics in
Now,
university, right?
yeah.
So I understand the concept of proof. proof when it applies to mathematics.
Okay, you have understood.
I'm extrapolating and saying, I don't believe there is a logical proof of the statement that this text cannot have been written by man.
There's a very very good website for
believe
you.
you're wrong?
There's a very good website for
Could
you.
your belief be wrong? Sorry.
Okay.
No, by definition, I don't think it could. By my definition, it can't be.
it's not belief
Because what is the scientific proof? How can you possibly say that a text which is written in a language that people speak
First,
cannot have been written by
here's the
man?
thing, Greg. You have to concede one thing, yeah? You don't know everything. And there could be some new knowledge out there that's coming your way today that you might cause you to reflect on this. Because you keep saying, I can't imagine, I can't see. Read it then. And then I'll tell you what, challenge it.
And also, if you
Quran is written in Arabic.
Not the Quran. No. The arguments of this Raymond Farron.
It's an objective test.
Yeah?
it's a very objective test, and I explained to you that Raymond Farron. I explained to you that when he basically was a linguist, studied Arabic for many years. American guy who this is more of a white guy thing, because us Asians, we go into medicine or accountancy or something like that. But the white man, the English man, he'll study Arabic poetry, which is what he did, right? And somebody said to him, well, you're studying all this Arabic poetry, why don't you look at the Quran, because it's all poetry, it all rhymes, it's very poetic. So he said, okay, I'll have a look at it, without giving him any dawah. Nobody went to him and said, Raymond, become a Muslim. Dawah is to invitation of Islam, right? Without anybody giving him invitation to Islam, his detailed knowledge and understanding of the structural elements of the Quran convinced him that this could not have been the work of human beings. Now,
it convinced him.
My point.
On balance of probability, he adopted a balance of probabilities and said, I believe that must be inspired by God, because I don't think it could
Now,
be written by
I'm
man.
not saying
That's
to
his
you,
view.
Greg, I'm not saying to you that upon reading that book, you must accept that, yes, I agree, that had to come from God. You could turn around and say, well, actually, yeah, it's pretty interesting, but I'm still going to deny it because I don't accept it. That's your prerogative. But what I'm saying to you is this: when people say there are no objective ways of analysing the Quran, it's not only is it, I think, very disingenuous, it's an outright lie. Because when you actually study, and Allah says to mankind, do you not ponder on this Quran? Don't you think about where this has come from? And when you analyze it in the manner that I'm telling you, structural elements of the Quran. So he goes in his book to explain concentric patterns, chiasm and parallelism. And the most common is the concentric patterns that he finds, which are ring structures. Those ring structures are so complex that he was convinced that it was impossible.
I will do my
Now,
research. I cannot
what I
refute this
advise you, now you're a man of mathematics, go to a website called Kahil7.com.
Kahil 7.
Kahil7.com.
Khilil.
Yeah, that's another miracle of the Quran, which is that he explains through mathematical formula how each ayah, each verse conforms to a particular pattern mathematically. Now again, you have no listen.
This seems
Listen.
like the sort of thing where you try to Muslims.
Yes.
And I'll talk about Muslims in this specific context,
Yes.
but all religions with their holy book.
Yes.
Have to somehow convince people
Yes.
that is the word of God.
Yes.
How do they do that?
Yes.
I can see two obvious ways they do that.
Yes.
One is by proclaiming miracles. For example,
Yes.
Christians did this. They
Yes.
said that Jesus. Why do I believe Jesus was the Son of God? Because he could do things
Yes.
that are beyond our conception of what a man could do.
Yes.
He could walk on water. He could heal the sick. He
Yes.
could turn loaves into fishes and so
Yes,
on.
yes,
I don't
yes.
believe any of these things happen.
Right.
But of course, they spread these stories to try
Yes.
and convince people that Jesus was
Yes.
somehow
Yes.
a deity.
Yes. If you actually saw Jesus do those things, if you actually saw Jesus bringing somebody who was clinically dead back to life, by the way, I don't believe that Jesus is God, by the way. We believe that he's a messenger of God.
We agree.
Okay, but if you actually saw that, would that make you a believer?
It would challenge me.
But you still wouldn't believe it.
Well, of course, I wouldn't just say I'm a believer.
No, okay.
But
So what I'm
I
trying
challenge God
Okay.
to reveal himself.
Okay.
Make me levitate right now.
Right.
If God made me levitate now for even 5 seconds, I would.
Okay, hold on a second. So if you saw God from the clouds now and said, Greg, Greg, I want you to become a Muslim. Would you accept that?
Yes.
You'd become a...
Yes.
But you could be hallucinating.
Speak to me.
But you could be
I want
hallucinating.
you all to see it as well. I want you to come to
But you could be hallucinating.
See, look, I speak about the Catholics, eh?
Yeah.
They claim, because the problem they suffer is that in the modern scientific world, we challenge them, we say, show me any evidence that God exists. And what they say is, we can see there is very little evidence for God's existence, but He's testing us. He's deliberately withholding evidence in order to test our faith, and those that pass that test, and that's what the Muslims say.
So you're comparing chalk. You're comparing chalk with cheese. You're comparing chalk with cheese. Yes. First of all, you're talking about a miracle that was witnessed or seen, possibly in your view, or not. So 2,000 years ago, and you're using that as a way of Christians to convince people of the authenticity of their religion. I'm not doing that. I'm not saying Muhammad, peace be upon him, cured somebody who was blind. That's why you should become a Muslim. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying to you is this.
Muslims believe that Muhammad was on a winged white horse.
Well,
and sailed around Saudi Arabia.
we're shotgunning again. Let's deal with what we're talking about, which is that I'm telling you that for Muhammad, peace be upon him, the miracle, every prophet was given a miracle, peace be upon them. Moses, at the time of Moses, we believe that when he split the ocean, at that time the witnesses who saw the ocean stand up on both sides, let me just finish my point. If that happened, according to you, right, they would have had no reason to doubt that this is the prophet of God. Look what he's just done.
But I'm saying it didn't happen.
No. But
my belief system.
My point is this. Please, Hamza.
Occam's razor.
Greg,
go back to the simplest
that's not my point. Greg, that's not my point. My point is this. At the time of Moses, if those things did happen, there would have been evident proof for those people who witnessed that on that day, that Moses is probably what he says he is, a prophet of God. Peace be upon him, right? The father then who told his son, hey son, by the way, 40 years ago we were at this place and Moses split the ocean up and we walked across, he might think, wow, fantastic, he must be a prophet of God. As the generations go down, now it becomes second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 15th generation, and you start thinking, well, did this really happen? Or am I just being told? Because now the witness is not witnessed. You haven't witnessed it. The difference with Islam, because the revelation and the prophethood was the last, peace be upon him, the miracle was the Quran, was the everlasting Quran for humanity to apply the test.
Then we diverge.
No, hold on a second.
I concede that it is everlasting.
But my point is,
I think it was written by Muhammad.
My point is, okay, but my point is this, when you come to a conclusion like that, you have to give a reason other than it just doesn't feel right.
Is the burden of proof on me to disprove
God's existence? No.
Is the burden of proof on you?
The burden of proof is about me telling you that this is why I believe the Quran could not have come from any human being. Now,
I'm saying that doesn't meet my standards.
No, but hold on a second. You don't know that yet. You only know that when after I've given you that bit of that snippet, that golden nugget, is to put it in your mouth and give it a little bite and test whether it is gold or not.
I can extend this debate a little bit. I know that it's getting late, and I'm sorry to be dominating this. But my challenge to you then is, I think you guys are all religious people, not just Muslims. He's gone now. Our Bible-bashing Christian over there, they all look at the last 2,000 or 3,000 years of human existence, which is all we have records of. And they say, okay, originally the belief system was the Earth was 5,000 years old. We now know the Earth is 4,000 million
not for Muslims. Not for Muslims.
Christians, I can see it. We now know the Earth is 4,000 million years old, according to science.
Yes.
And you can take it or leave it, and take it or leave it. I actually take it because I think that science has enough evidence.
I have no reason to disagree with that.
And that the universe is 13,000 million years old. Now, given the vastness of time for which the universe has existed, and given the size of the universe, where we believe that our galaxy is one of 100 billion galaxies, each of which has 100 billion stars.
Actually, more than that now. Hubble has actually done a deep space exploration, and and the figure now they say could be 100 times more stars
There's a lot of
than
zeros,
actually
a lot of
existed.
zeros, okay?
Yeah, a lot of
There's
zeros.
a lot of zeros.
And in fact, the previous, sorry, Greg, the previous statistic was very.
wait for it.
The, the previous statistic was very interesting, which was that there were more stars in the universe than grains of sand on
I
every
believe that, yeah.
beach on the earth.
Yes.
Now that figure's been revised, and they're saying it could be 100 times
I agree.
more
So we
than
agree it's
that.
vast.
Okay.
We agree
Now-
the universe is vast,
Now.
and the amount of
Right.
the epoch of time is vast.
Yes.
Hear the point.
Yes.
My point is,
Yes.
what makes us think somehow that God, Allah,
Yes.
has a special plan for man?
Yes.
Man has only been on the earth, according to science,
Yes.
less than 1 million years.
Yes.
So for the first 3,999 million years of the existence of planet Earth,
Yes.
man did not exist.
Yes.
Secondly, science says we evolved from other forms of other species, which I know the Muslims have a
We're
problem.
making different points now
No,
here.
but my point is simply this.
Yeah.
So to believe somehow that some prophets came along 2,000 years... so my question is, what the fuck was God doing for all that... Sorry.
Well, why do you have to use language like that? I don't understand why
Sorry,
we can't just. Why can't we just be civil and?
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize. I apologize.
Okay, okay, it's okay, it's okay. Go on.
What was God doing for all this time until 2,000 years ago? What was he? Why did the dinosaurs?
But you see what you've just done there, Greg. Now again.
I'm trying to create.
No,
perspective.
you're not.
Say we
I'll
can't
tell you.
just
I'll
focus on the last
tell you what you're
2,000
doing.
years
Look,
and
look.
existence. The last prophet. You said Muhammad was the last prophet.
Yes.
So what
Peace
makes
be
you
upon
think
him.
there won't be more? If you believe
Yes.
that there's been a succession of
Well,
prophets.
you've asked a series of questions here. Hold on. You've asked a series of questions. You've asked a
I'm
series.
asking you to consider
Okay.
the vastness of the
Okay.
universe and the vastness of time.
Deal with the last prophet
Let me do that. Let me do that.
Religions have all been predicated on the assumption that God created.
let me do that.
Christianity said God created the earth 5,000 years ago, and that's all we have.
Greg, I'm not here to defend Christians.
Christianity was- well, Christians were wrong about that.
I'm not here to defend Christians, and we're not talking about Christianity. Number two, my point was a very precise point, and I made it for a very precise reason, and that was there are lots of things that are subjective, which you've just now raised. Why did God do this, and how did God do that,
I can't
and why
understand this.
did God make so many stars, and why for 313.99 billion years? No. My point. No. Please look. Let me just finish my point. I gave you a lot of time to speak. So,
Giving you a lot more time.
why did God do those things? Well, I don't know. And why did God do it in that way? I don't know. But what I do know is this: those things are either God will tell us why He did it that way, or He won't. But it's not relevant to my existence. It's not relevant to why I'm here.
should be relevant
And
to your beliefs.
fundamentally.
It should make you
No.
question whether what you're told
No,
the last
but
2,000 years ago represented the universe at
Greg,
large,
but Greg,
in the vastness of the universe.
fundamentally, it should not be the catalyst that either convinces me or otherwise of the message of Islam. The catalyst
makes me question.
No, because look, you by your own admission have said that I could be wrong. So
Anybody who works in science must
exactly,
make that admission.
exactly.
We might be wrong.
So that's why I say to you.
There might be a creator. I don't believe it
So
exists.
that's why I say to you, Greg, that if a claim is being made that this book is from God and it is a miracle for this reason, this reason, this reason, and this reason, that now becomes more objective.
We're not even handle one.
And if I make a claim, you can test my claim.
We've got Burnley away next.
You can test my claim. I'll tell you why you can test my claim.
wait.
Because if Raymond Farrin or Professor Neil Robinson or this Kahil 7 website or Noman Ali Khan who goes through the grammatical miracles of the Quran, he comes up and they come up with all these suggestions and you can refute them and say, that's nonsense because of that, that's nonsense because of that, that's just made up, that's inaccurate, that's rubbish. Now you have acquired a decision or you've come to a point of conclusion based upon reason.
Yes.
Because you've applied your reason in relation to the evidence that was provided for you.
So you're suggesting that I have to look at these
What I suggest to you is this, that when you look at these things, me personally, and of course you could say that I'm biased because I'm a Muslim, born a Muslim, but I find them overwhelmingly convincing that this book could never have originated from any human characteristic, human understanding, human comprehension.
The analogy I sometimes use is if somebody met, if I actually this happened to me once. I met a person that said they'd been to a party, this is in Australia, they'd seen somebody levitate.
Yeah.
And I said, you're hallucinating.
Yeah.
Levitation is not possible.
Yeah.
Now the burden of proof is not upon me.
Yes.
The burden of proof should be on such people. If you think you see somebody levitate,
Yes.
I would argue that you should question your own sanity first,
Yes.
rather than question
I
science.
agree with that.
Because there is no known physical process that will allow levitation.
Yes.
So my point is simply about burden of proof. I don't believe in God's existence.
Yes.
You do.
Yes.
Right? And that we all both have valid reasons for why we might want to believe what
Yes.
we believe.
Yes.
But I would simply argue that what I try to do is look at the totality of the universe, the totality, and see, ask for reasons to believe in the existence of something that I'm told to believe in.
Yes.
I believe the reason people believe in God is because they're taught to believe in God.
Yes.
Bertrand Russell himself said there's two reasons people believe. One is they're taught to, the second is fear of death. Okay. And I've heard both arguments.
Well, what about like Hamza, who was convinced about the message?
I think
So he doesn't
I
fall
don't
in
know
those
your
definitions.
history. I don't know your history.
He wasn't a Muslim.
I would, but I've heard you once or twice before. Were you unhappy with your life? Is that why you weren't unhappy?
No.
So what caused you to convert?
Islam caused me to lose everything in my life.
He lost his
My
job.
relationship, my family,
children.
my business, my friends.
So you gave up a lot to become a Muslim.
Yes, everything.
But why did you do it? What convinced you?
Because it was the truth.
What caused you to investigate the Quran? Why did you read the Quran?
Okay, I had Muslim friends who tried to speak to me about Islam. I would say, are you praying 5 times a day? They weren't. So I said, when you're praying 5 times a day, then come talk to me. 9/11 happens, everyone gets emotional, starts praying 5 times a day. When they come to me again, I say, you're praying 5 times a day? They say, yes, we all are. I listen, I challenge, I question. I argued against Islam for 2 years. Yeah?
Well, then I applaud you for making. I mean, I may disagree with your decision,
No.
but I applaud
But the thing is, this, you see, the way it works is this, you see, you don't go from not believing into Islam. First stage that you're at is Islam should be the last thing on your mind, I'll be honest with you. First thing in your mind is about the Creator. Why are you denying the existence of a Creator? Something's happened that's caused you to do that. Now, you can't prove there isn't a Creator, and I don't know what evidence can support that idea, because it's a belief. You say, I don't believe a Creator exists, but you could also be wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So then I would look at the arguments by people who argue for a Creator, yeah, and challenge that first, yeah. Don't challenge Islam. First, challenge the idea of a Creator.
No, I agree.
Yeah,
It's a philosophical
So
discussion.
for me,
It's not religious, it's philosophical.
see, for me, Islam had nothing to do with me believing in a Creator. Yeah, nothing whatsoever. Yeah, because I became a believer in the idea of a Creator, but I rejected it, all religions, man-made religions, to control the masses. For the weak, need a crutch. This was me. Yeah.
They can be speaking my language.
Yeah, exactly. No, but this is exactly how I thought, yeah? Because I didn't want my life being controlled. I accepted, okay, there's a Creator and this, that, the other, but I don't believe that. But then I started contemplating on why we were created, for what purpose? Has the Creator tried to link with us? Right? That's when I started to question, or not, is there a connection to this Creator, and how can I connect to this Creator that I now believe exists? Well, all religions are making their claims that we connect to the Creator, and when the reality is they don't. All the Buddhism, Taoism, Shintoism, Confucianism, they're all philosophies, nothing to do with God, so we can rule them out.
So you can see that Judaism and Christianity.
I narrowed it down to the Abrahamic faiths, yeah, because Hinduism I rejected on the ideas of Ganesh and Vishnus and all this business. Sikhism I rejected because they include teachings.
So you examined all of these religions?
Yes.
Or philosophies?
You know what? You know who forced me to do that? Jehovah's Witnesses. Knocked on my door with a book called Mankind's Search for God.
Okay.
Right? And I'll never forget this, because it's brilliant. You know why? Because it explained every religion of the world and then refuted it. Yeah? Except Islam. Didn't refute it. I was shocked. Why are you refuting it?
So how did it refute other religions though? What does it do to
Just
refute
expose them.
religions?
Just showed you why they're all false and this, that, the other.
And you don't believe that could be done to Islam?
Of course it can't.
Okay. Your belief system says it can't be, but
No.
I would argue it's possible,
No.
but,
I challenge you. You prove to me that anything I believe as a Muslim is false. Prove it. You can't.
the burden
And
of
also
proof
going back to your, and also going back to sorry.
This is where, no disrespect, but you can't keep using this idea of burden of proof. If I believe something, yeah, and I believe it based on my reasons, yeah, if you don't accept what I believe, I don't care, yeah, I don't have to prove it to you. If you don't believe it, you don't believe it. I can show you why I believe it, and you can reject those reasons. If you want to say I'm wrong, you have to prove that now, because that's your claim. Do you understand?
I accept what you're saying.
Right, so what I'm saying to you is this. So I believe what I believe based on my reasoning, and I've come to my conclusion that this is the reality. Now, if you, like I said to you, don't accept my reasoning, so like, for example, I believe in a creator because I don't believe all this could have happened by accident. I really don't. Yeah? When I look at the wonders of the universe, when I look at nature and this, that, I just can't see this happening by accident.
That's the argument by incredulity.
But that's my reason. That's my reason. Your reason for accepting the idea of a creator may be different. It's subjective. It really is. So once I establish why I believe what I believe, that's my belief. Yeah? Now, if you want to challenge that or reject it, I don't mind. If you reject it, I say I don't believe that, I don't care. I'll repeat myself. I don't care. But if you then say what I believe is false, now you need to prove that because you're making a claim about my belief now. And this is where atheists in this part get this a little bit mashed up because if I can't prove something to you, so I believe in this creator, yeah, and I can't prove it to you, doesn't mean my claim is false. It just means you don't have to accept it.
I accept that.
Oh yeah, that's what it is.
Why do I reject the arguments for the first cause, which is the one you just well, not the first cause, the argument by design? You said I can't believe this happened.
No, what I said is this. First of all, I have to ask the question: is this universe here by accident or deliberate?
Science doesn't say it's by accident.
No, I'm asking the question: is it by accident or is it deliberate? If it's deliberate, that means it was meant to happen. If it was accident, it means it happened because of the result of certain things. Now, I believe it's deliberate. I really do. I like the orchestration and everything within it, the design within
That's
it.
the argument by design, yes, which is very standardized.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah. When I look at people talk about evolving from.
But I have a response to that. My question is who designed the designer? I'm simply saying, to me, I don't accept the premise of the argument.
No, well, here's the thing, you see, because
from the argument from the first cause. So I believe we have to explain the designer.
Well, if we go to I don't, because if we go to the first cause, unless that first cause can't have a cause, because it wouldn't be the first cause, obviously.
Okay.
Right, and then if it doesn't have a cause, then it means it's uncaused.
Yes.
Right. So it's something
Why can't I call that the universe?
Well,
why do I have to call that the
because
creator?
the universe is caused.
No, but then the same argument could apply to the creator. You're saying
No,
that
no,
it's the
no,
first
no,
cause.
no.
And I'm saying,
No.
you just relabeled
No.
I'm calling it the universe, you're calling it God.
No, I'm not. The universe didn't exist at one point, as it exists today, did it?
It came into
So
existence.
something caused it to come like this.
Well, science is still debating this issue.
No,
the Big
scientists
Bang,
are debating of how it happened, why it happened, and Stephen Hawking's, like to quote one guy, he says it's an uncaused cause. Something
From a singularity. That's true. The science would claim that...
No, but the point is,
You see,
if there's an uncaused cause, that means nothing can design that because it didn't come into existence because it's always existed. And
Stephen Hawking's with me. He believes that... What I'm saying is, I cannot...
So you're asking who created the creator?
Correct.
Right, and who created that creator? There has to be a first cause.
We agree with that.
So the first cause, is it caused or uncaused?
No, not a first cause. You're saying an uncaused cause.
Is a first cause.
You have to say that this
is a
going back
first
on the
cause.
chain,
Okay.
there has to be a self-caused agency.
Is the first cause.
And I'm saying I call that the universe. I see no evidence for the existence of an ally.
But the causes of the universe. That's the point.
Start trying to rephrase it.
Exactly.
Was there a...
That's what we're.
So you're not talking about a cause. You're not talking about pure first cause. You're talking about first cause of the universe.
I'm asking what's the cause of the universe. Yes.
Right.
What's the cause of the universe?
I don't know.
You don't know. I know. We know that. All right. So, but we know it had a cause. Yes.
That I don't know either.
Well, what caused it? Well, I thought you were a science man.
I'm simply saying it might have caused.
Do you know of anything in existence that gets caused without a cause?
This argument I've heard countless times. It doesn't hold water with me because I can ask the same.
Why doesn't it hold water? Why doesn't it hold water?
If Allah exists and created the universe, who the hell created Allah?
Let him run. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't. So I'm saying I don't believe in the premise of the argument of the first cause. I don't believe that leads to God. No, I don't.
No, let's stop saying God. Who's mentioned God?
I thought that's what we're talking about.
No.
We're talking about God a lot.
No, we're talking about the cause of the universe. What is that cause? We as Muslims believe a creator, yeah? But you're not a Muslim, you don't believe in this thing. So I'm asking you, what is the cause? Now you're saying you don't know. Right. Now is there a cause?
I don't know that either.
Well, there is a cause or not a cause.
I don't know.
He doesn't know. That's fine.
Do you know
So
what
you said don't know
agnostics
twice
mean?
now.
Do you know what the word agnostic means?
Do you think it's fair then if you don't know about something that you can have an opinion to tell someone else is wrong about it? But you don't know.
Well, no, that's my opinion. I'm simply saying I don't accept
So you
your
don't
premise.
know. You don't know.
Agnostics say we don't know the answer to some questions.
So if
It's a
you
metaphysical
don't,
question we cannot answer.
So if you don't know the answer to a particular question, then you can't say someone else's answer to that same question is wrong because you don't know.
What if we have 3 or 4 conflicting versions of what is reality. If you make your claim, and a Christian makes his claim, and a Buddhist makes his claim, am I to say you're all correct?
Which is why he hasn't
No.
read into it.
No.
That's why I haven't mentioned perspective of religion.
No, but Greg, what he is saying is that you are entitled to have whatever view on reality you want to have.
Yeah.
He's
can't say I'm wrong,
entitled to
you don't know.
have. But the second I say to you, Greg, that no, Greg, I think you're absolutely wrong about that. You have the right to say why.
Okay.
And the onus is the onus is on me then, because I said you were wrong, intrinsically wrong about something, as to prove why you are wrong.
Okay, I'm using wrong in the vernacular. I cannot logically prove you're wrong.
Going back to your point, Greg,
You can't prove I'm wrong.
No, we didn't say that, did we? What point is this?
We're not saying
you
that,
said
Greg.
you don't know. Okay. Right? So when you don't know something, you have no authority to say someone's wrong about that same thing. You have no authority.
It's like, okay,
But atheists in the park think they can.
Do I know levitation is impossible for humans? No, I don't know it's impossible.
Right.
The laws of the laws of science tell me it's impossible.
Right.
Can I logically prove it's impossible? No, I cannot.
Right.
Because you could always say you might see somebody levitate in Marble Arch tomorrow.
Right.
How can you dismiss that as a possibility? I cannot dismiss that. But I'm saying, according to my understanding of the universe and of current scientific knowledge, that is physically impossible.
But Greg, but no, hold on a second, Greg. No, but Greg, you're again comparing chalk with cheese.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. Because somebody telling you that somebody hovered.
I know.
somebody hovered 5 foot off the ground is very different from what I'm telling you, which is that, look, this is the Quran.
Okay.
Test it. These are the reasons why I believe. Do you understand my point?
Yeah,
It's a different thing. Now, if you said that somebody hovered 5 feet off the ground, and here's the documented evidence that he did it, that's very different from just a hearsay.
Yeah.
And so the Quran is that documented evidence. Okay. I'm saying to you, investigate it.
The ones at this point. Can I just say, I have really enjoyed the discussion.
So have I.
And you guys are very difficult to argue with because you're very clever.
Well, no, it's not about being clever.
And look,
it's not about being
I have
clever.
my view, and my colleague here has his view. He tends to agree.
Make sure it's informed.
That's all.
But I enjoy these discussions. I enjoy the metaphysical debate. If I've got angry at any point or aggressive, I apologise.
Same for us as well. Look,
But
Islam.
it's all done in good spirit.
But you know what?
These are important questions. I don't deny that. These are important questions.
And it should be done in a cordial, nice way, because even the Prophet's teaching about giving dawah is that present it in the most beautiful, the most well-mannered ways. It's not about grabbing someone by the neck and say, you got to accept Islam.
Well, I have to do a bit of research because you're understanding what Muhammad said and behaved is a bit different from what I've been told. I'm told Muhammad was a warlord.
What I can do for you is then, please, I beg of thee, avoid Wiki Islam, Jihad.
I don't know about Wiki Islam. I use Wikipedia.
No,
I do.
But you know, but also, Greg.
I'm going to give you a balance here. Whatever you come across saying Muhammad's a warlord, do the same thing, but then type answering Christianity.
Okay. Answering Christianity.
Yeah, what you will find is you'll find the claim made by whoever made it. Muhammad was a warlord, did this, did that, and then you'll find the complete refutation to it. And there's nothing mentioned on any of those sites that hasn't been refuted. Nothing.
And also,
people try to
and also, as a rule of thumb, throughout history, people who are tyrants and are mass murderers have a very short lifespan, and their dynasties crumble away very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. What you do not find, Greg, what you do not find is what the Mori poll says, that between 2001 and 2011, this is just the people who changed their names to a Muslim name, so they came up on the census. It discards all the people like Hamza and everybody else who kept their original English names because they don't want to change the birth certificate and the documentations on the passport and certificates, etc., etc. More than 100,000 English Brits accepted Islam with an average education level of postgraduate, and 72% of them were women. And you know why they accepted Islam?
Because they're married Muslims.
No, no.
That's a Greg answer.
No,
That's a Greg answer.
no, Greg. Because they said, the Maury poll said, they spent on average 7 years studying comparative religion. They sometimes started with Islam and they went into many other isms and ideologies, and then they returned back to Islam.
What Hamza
Now,
went through is
the-
what
the-
some
the
people do.
proof-
They examine all
The
of
proof in the pudding is in the eating. Taste it first.
See you guys.
Taste it first. You might
enjoyed
come up
the
with a
debate.
different conclusion. All right. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
See you later. Nice to meet you too. All right.
Come back again.
You heard about Matt?
Yeah, it's still as